Millionaire discovers heartwarming truth after girl whispered "I just want milk." Incredible transformation begins. Jack Miller, a self-made millionaire with a mansion perched high above the lush streets of Willow Creek, stood poised to conquer the latest business venture. To everyone else, he was living the dream: sports cars, elite parties, and a life of leisure. But beneath the glimmering surface, a gnawing emptiness echoed back to him, a feeling that swelling bank accounts couldn't fill. Was he truly successful, or merely successful at being alone? That day, wanders led him to an old neighborhood he hadn't seen in years. A past he thought he'd left behind. The air was weighted with nostalgia, and his heart fluttered with apprehension. As he stepped into a rundown corner store, the scent of stale bread mingled with the crisp aroma of fresh apples, triggering memories he thought he'd buried. It was a world away from his extravagant lifestyle, but something about it pulled at him. Then came a soft voice, a whisper so quiet yet so powerful. "I just want milk." The words echoed in Jack's heart as he turned to see a small girl, Lily, with big brown eyes full of yearning. Her small frame seemed dwarfed by the empty shelves around her. Compelled by her innocence, he felt drawn in. "Can I help you with that?" he asked, kneeling to meet her gaze. Lily looked up, hesitating. "Mama needs it," she said, her voice barely a murmur. As they talked, Jack learned of her single mother, juggling 2 jobs just to put food on the table. Each word felt like a stone thrown into his carefully curated life, a reminder of struggles he once knew all too well. His heart tightened. The triumphant memories of his own childhood surfaced, filled with hardship, sacrifices, and dreams muted by reality. As Jack engaged with Lily, he glimpsed the fierce love between her and her mother, a bond forged in adversity. The passion and desperation in their relationship ignited something deep within him. Was wealth all there was? Did he not yearn for that kind of connection? But as he got to know more about their lives, a threat loomed over the community. A redevelopment project aimed at pushing low-income families like Lily's into invisibility nagged at his conscience. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lost in thought, Jack found himself wrestling with decisions he never expected. Deep down, he longed to protect what was familiar but faced the hard truth of his life's selfish trajectory. How could he, a man who once turned his back on this world, now stand back and watch the community crumble? As the clock ticked away, Jack learned there was a community event planned to unite the neighborhoods against the impending changes. It stirred a flurry of emotions deep within him, but which path would he take? Will he lend his powerful voice to those he once abandoned, igniting a spark of hope among families striving to survive, or will he retreat into the comfort of his lavish lifestyle, allowing everything to be swept away into obscurity? As he stood there, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders, he overheard Lily share her dreams with her mother, a future bright with promise and possibility. Jack's heart raced. Was redemption calling? The community was waiting. Would he step up and find freedom and connection, or would he walk away forever, suffocating behind his walls? The choice loomed large as he stood on the precipice of transformation, ready to redefine not just his life, but the very life of an entire community. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he stood there, struggling to choose between a reality that felt all too heavy and a life he'd built on the premise of isolation. The vibrant chatter of the community buzzed around him, echoing laughter, whispers of hope, and the sweet promise of belonging. It jarred against the silence that enveloped his mansion, a stark reminder of the loneliness that haunted him in those grand, empty halls. He glanced back at Lily, who was still clutching an empty milk carton to her chest, her eyes wide and innocent. That small gesture ignited a flicker of something inside him. What if he could be a part of their lives? What if he could use his wealth not just to enhance his own comfort, but to transform this community that had shaped him? Just then, a line of neighbors began to filter into the store, each face etched with lines of struggle but glowing with a sense of camaraderie. They greeted each other with warmth, exchanging smiles that spoke volumes, a language Jack had almost forgotten. They were real, they were resilient, and they were living testament to the fact that wealth could be measured in connections, not just dollars. "Are you coming to the meeting?" someone asked Jack suddenly, pulling him from his reverie. It was Mr. Thompson, an elderly man known for his sweeping stories of hardship and tenacity. His silver hair matched the silver lining of his spirit. Jack hesitated, the weight of his decision weighing heavily. I haven't decided yet." "You should," Mr. Thompson replied softly. "This place deserves someone who wants to fight for it. This place deserves you." Suddenly, the world around him shrank. It was no longer about his past failures and ghosts, it was about this present moment, a chance for redemption, a chance to give a voice back to those who had been silenced. The thought surged through him, filling him with an unexpected energy. Jack couldn't bring himself to walk away, not now. "I'll be there," he said, and with those words, something shifted within him. As he stepped out of the store, the sun illuminated the street, transforming the mundane into something magical. Beyond the horizon, he could see posters plastered on lampposts, details of the community event that would take place later that week. It was a way for families to gather, to share, to unite against the threat looming over them. The thought of standing up, speaking out, and most importantly connecting made his heart race. "Hey, Jack!" Lily's voice rang through the air, and he turned back to see her waving excitedly. "You can come to my mom's dinner. She always makes the best spaghetti." Jack chuckled, warmth filling his chest. "I'd love that, Lily. I'll bring some milk with me." As they laughed together, a rush of exhilaration surged through him. Could he truly carve out a new path for himself? He felt like a man waking up from a long sleep, filled with hope and purpose. Their struggles weren't just tales of hardship, they were inspiring stories of survival, devotion, and love. But as the day wore on, he couldn't shake a nagging thought. If he chose to stand with them, how would his life change? Would the gilded cage he had built begin to crumble? The fear of vulnerability loomed large. What if they rejected him for not being one of them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, Jack stood at the edge of his old neighborhood, battling the familiar discomfort of uncertainty. What would happen when he stepped into the community meeting? Would he find the strength within to embrace this new journey and continue on the path of real transformation? Only time would tell. Jack paced restlessly in his grand yet empty mansion, the walls vibrating with echoes of a life spent in solitude. One moment, he stood at a crossroads. The next, standing in front of the community center, he fought against a tide of insecurity. He could hear laughter and chatter spilling from within. It sounded alive, vibrant, full of possibility. But as he shifted his weight from one foot to the other, butterflies danced in his stomach. Lily's smile flickered in his mind like a beacon. She had reignited something dormant, a yearning for genuine connection. Jack took a deep breath, reminding himself that this was not merely a meeting, it was a chance to become part of a family he had long shunned. The door creaked open, and the warm light inside spilled out like honey. Jack hesitated on the threshold, his heart pounding. Voices rose and fell like the waves of the sea, and he felt the comforting pulse of community wrap around him. But doubt lurked. What would they think of him, a millionaire with a lonely past? Just then, a familiar face appeared, Mr. Thompson, who approached with a kind smile that eased Jack's tension. "There you are, my boy. Glad you decided to come." "Thanks for the encouragement," Jack said, forcing a smile despite the tightness in his throat. The hall buzzed with energy, filled with neighbors chatting, laughter bubbling like a pot on a stove. Almost everyone had come to discuss the challenges they faced as a community, especially in light of the recent push to close the local resource center. Jack felt an unexpected pull toward them. These were the faces of resilience, real stories behind each smile. As they settled into a circle, sharing their fears and hopes, Jack listened intently. Their united voices rang out, a chorus of determination. They spoke of organizing support for one another, setting up fundraisers, and creating programs for kids like Lily, who needed nourishment and companionship. His heart swelled as their passion filled the air. Finally, after everyone had shared, Mr. Thompson turned to Jack. "You're here now, maybe you have something to share, too?" All eyes turned toward him. Jack's stomach tightened, fear threatening to choke him. He opened his mouth, desperate to say something, anything that could matter. What would he say? He had built his empire while they had built a family. Yeah, he stammered, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I want to help. I see what you're all trying to do. You have each other, and you have strength. I can contribute money, resources, anything. I want to fight for this community." A lull filled the room. Gasps and whispers swirled around him, scrapes of chairs adjusting as they glanced at one another, assessing. Then, just as tension began to rise, Lily's bright voice broke through the silence. "Can you bring us milk, too? That'd be awesome." Laughter erupted, breaking the ice and easing the anxiety. Jack felt lighter, a smile breaking through as he met the enthusiastic agreement of the group. They launched into planning, ideas sprouting like weeds in spring. Jack felt giddy, the adrenaline pounding in his chest. With every idea shared and every laugh exchanged, he felt closer to them. But despite the warmth, a whisper of uncertainty remained tangled in his thoughts. As they stood together in solidarity, he couldn't shake a question: would they still accept him if they truly knew how far removed he had been from their daily struggles? As the night grew deep, Jack left the meeting with promises of support nestled in his heart. Yet doubt still lingered, shadowing his newfound excitement like clouds over a sunset. Just how far could he go in bridging the chasm that once divided them? He turned to gaze at the flickering lights of the community center, knowing one shift could change everything if he dared to be vulnerable enough to share his truth. But could he? Would he take that leap? In the depths of his mind, the answer danced just out of reach. Jack woke the next day with a renewed sense of purpose, each moment radiating the energy he felt the night before. The sunlight filtering through the curtains felt different, less like a signal of another solitary day and more like a promise. His thoughts drifted to Lily and her innocent desire for milk, her playful enthusiasm still echoing within him. It pierced through the lingering doubts like a ray of sunshine through a cloudy sky. After a quick breakfast, Jack decided it was time to act. He grabbed his phone and started developing a list of resources he could bring to the next meeting. Food donations, educational materials, toys for the kids, anything that could bridge the gap between his lavish lifestyle and the needs of the community. It felt good to breathe purpose into his life, even as his hands trembled slightly from the weight of commitment. That afternoon, Jack visited the local store. He wandered the aisles where fridges hummed softly, scanning shelves filled with products that seemed foreign to him. For years, his shopping sprees included only the finest gourmet ingredients or extravagant items, but this time he was looking for basics, necessities that nourished families. He filled his cart with milk, bread, and cereal, imagining the joyful faces of children as he delivered them. By the time he returned home, anticipation bubbled within him, intermingling with that familiar knot of anxiety. He knew he had to show up at the community center again, but the thought of facing them again was daunting. Would they see him as a wealthy outsider trying to buy his way into their hearts? Or could he truly become one of them? As he stacked the groceries in his car, a sudden voice interrupted his thoughts. "Hey, Jack. Need a hand?" It was Mr. Thompson, who had strolled down the street just in time to see him. Yeah, if you don't mind," Jack replied, grateful for the help. Together, they loaded the back seat with the bags. "You're really stepping up, you know that?" Mr. Thompson said, his eyes glinting with approval. "The community could use more people like you." Jack felt a warmth bloom in his chest. I want to help," he admitted. "To change how things are. I've been so far removed for so long. I want to show you all I mean it." Mr. Thompson nodded, understanding the struggle Jack faced. "Being here is a big first step," he said. "But don't forget, for many, the fight has always been real. You may need to share your story when the time is right. Trust builds the strongest bridges." Jack swallowed hard. Those words echoed in his mind. If he was to truly connect, he would need to open up, to lay bare his scars, his history, the very fabric of who he was. would they still accept him? Could he bare his soul to these people he barely knew but already cared about? As they arrived at the community center, the familiar buzzing warmth wrapped around him, but he hesitated at the entrance. They had greeted him with laughter and open arms, but his heart thudded loudly in his chest. Taking a deep breath, he stepped through the door, the aroma of home-cooked meals filling his senses, solidifying his resolve. Casually, he began to unpack the groceries as commotion filled the room, a hustle of chatter and exchange of stories painting the walls with life. Lily bounded toward him, her eyes shining. "Did you bring the milk?" Jack grinned, feeling the tension in his shoulders ease as he held up the gallon. "Absolutely. Are you ready for some serious cereal?" As laughter erupted around them, Jack knew he was one step closer. But the question loomed: when would he be ready to share the truth of who he was? The answer remained just beyond reach, calling him further into the depth of connection he both craved and feared. As he watched Lily giggle while frothing her milk for the first time, he wondered, what would happen if he let them in, if he bared his soul as they had? The moment of truth was approaching, and Jack could feel the tremors of change vibrating in the air. Would he dare to leap into vulnerability this time? Jack felt the warmth of the community around him as laughter mixed with the aroma of delicious meals. It was a symphony of life, full of energy and movement. But something deeper churned within him. An urge to connect, to share his struggles and triumphs, twisted into a knot in his stomach. Could he truly let them see the real him, the one who had lived behind the walls of privilege? Lily's giggle broke his reverie. She danced over, her little hands extended toward the cereal boxes stacked on the table. "Can I help?" Her innocent excitement pulled at his heartstrings. "Of course. You're the best cereal assistant I know," Jack replied, his smile genuine as he knelt to her eye level. He could see in her sparkling eyes the unfiltered joy of simply being a kid. They opened a box of colorful cereal together, the sound of the crunching filling the air as they poured it into cheerful bowls. As they sat at a community table, Jack stole glances around the room. Mr. Thompson was chatting with a group of adults, animatedly sharing stories about past neighborhood events. Others were engaged in games, laughter mingling with friendly banter. The room buzzed with an intimacy that felt foreign and yet comforting to Jack, who had always surrounded himself with people of wealth and status. "Jack?" Lily's voice brought him back. "Can we talk about something special?" "Sure, what's on your mind?" She looked serious for a moment, her tiny fingers tracing the rim of her bowl. "My mom says stories help people feel less alone." "Do you have a story?" Oh, how that question sank into him. Jack's memories flooded back, his struggles with losing his parents at a young age, being thrust into a world where he had everything but family. His fingers clenched the edge of the table as he weighed her words. "I have a few stories," he replied softly. "But they're kinda heavy." Lily tilted her head, her brow furrowing. "Heavy stories can be good. They can make everyone feel better when they're shared." Feeling the genuine sincerity emanating from the girl, Jack's resolve began to waver. Here was a child, in her innocence, who had yet to be tarnished by the world's complexities. If anyone could create a bridge, it would be her sweet spirit. "Okay," he said hesitantly. "Maybe tonight, after dinner, I can share one story with everyone." Lily squealed with excitement, clapping her hands. "Yes. And I'll tell one, too." They both laughed, the sound mingling with the warmth around them, but as the evening progressed, Jack's heart pounded harder. What if they didn't accept him? What if the very threads that had stitched him so tightly to his past unraveled under their scrutiny? What if they saw him, not as Jack, but as just some rich guy trying to fit in? As they prepared for dinner, Jack saw Mr. Thompson approaching him, a knowing look in his eyes. "You okay?" he asked quietly, concern dancing under his voice. "I think I'm going to share some of my story tonight," Jack admitted, anxiety slipping through his veins like ice. "Good. But remember, this is a safe space. They're here for each other just as much as they are for you," Mr. Thompson reassured him. With each passing moment, Jack's anxiety shifted slightly to hope. Maybe this was what he had been searching for. A space to show his vulnerabilities, to connect genuinely without the expectations of wealth shadowing every interaction. As they gathered around the long table for dinner, Jack took a deep breath, feeling his heart race. The lights dimmed slightly, casting a warm glow that seemed to envelop everyone. "Okay, everyone," Lily called out, her voice high and clear. "Jack's gonna tell us a story." The room quieted, eyes turning eagerly towards him. Jack's throat tightened, and he felt the space around him pulse with anticipation. He glanced at the faces around him, each filled with curiosity and warmth. Would this really be the moment he transformed? Would they see beyond the wealth, seeing instead the man he had become? With a deep, steadying breath, he prepared to speak, feeling the weight of the moment settle upon him. But the truth remained unspoken, dangling at the edge of his lips. Would this be the night he unveiled his heart to those who needed to hear it? As he opened his mouth, preparing to share, he spotted a tear sliding down Mr. Thompson's cheek, and suddenly the gravity of what lay before him struck deeper than he could have anticipated. Would sharing his pain bring them together, or tear this moment anew? Jack began to speak. Jack's voice trembled as he began to share his story. "I grew up in a world full of things, but I lost my parents when I was very young. I had a comfortable life, but I felt like an empty box. You know?" He paused, taking a breath. The weight of his past hung heavy in the air, but he pushed through. "I remember the first Christmas without them. My family had all the money in the world, but I couldn't find joy. The presents felt hollow. My house was filled with people, but still, I was alone." He searched for familiar faces in the crowd, and he found Mr. Thompson nodding slowly, offering silent support. Lily watched him with wide eyes, and her expression was filled with empathy. Like a gentle breeze blowing through the tension, her innocence engulfed the room. As he continued, Jack remembered the loneliness he carried like a backpack full of stones. "I had friends, sure, but they were always an arm's length away. Wealth can build walls, you know? It makes it hard for others to understand you." A murmur went through the crowd, and Jack caught glimpses of nodding heads. The truth resonated. "I spent a lot of time trying to prove I was worth something," he said, glancing at Lily, who was still gazing at him, her tiny hands clasped together. "But I hid my feelings behind expensive suits and fancy dinners. I thought if I looked the part, I'd fit in. But it only made me feel worse." The silence around him grew deeper. Jack felt like he was peeling away layers of his heart as he shared his journey. It wasn't just a tale of loss, it was a story of survival, of seeking connection in a world that often told him he didn't need people. "I eventually realized that the things I bought didn't heal the cracks in my heart. And one day, I just got tired of pretending," he admitted, his voice wavering. "That's when I started looking for real connections." Tears misted in Jack's eyes as he locked gazes with Mr. Thompson. And then, he spotted someone in the back, an older woman, nodding with understanding. It made his heart swell, the sense of acceptance wrapping around him like a warm coat on a wintry day. "After years of searching, I found myself here, with all of you. I want to learn how to really be part of this community, not just as a man with a bank account, but as someone who feels and shares." He finished, the room still silent. No one moved. But he could see it, an ever so slight change in their expressions, a flicker of understanding that perhaps his story resonated more than he knew. Finally, Lily stood up on her chair, eyes shining bright. "You are not just Jack the rich guy. You're Jack, our friend. And we all have stories that make us special." Laughter erupted around the room, and it felt like a release. Jack's heart soared as warmth swept through the crowd. In that moment, Jack realized he had begun to transform, not only for himself but for everyone who had listened. Was it possible that vulnerable moments could open doors to deeper connections? As the energy in the room shifted, people started to share their own stories of struggles, immortalized experiences tied together by humanity. The sense of togetherness blossomed, something he'd chased after for so long. But then, just as Jack began to feel like he truly belonged, a loud crash came from the kitchen, and the laughter halted. Curious glances were exchanged, and worries flickered in the air. What was that? Someone whispered with trepidation as shouts followed. Jack's stomach dropped. Could this evening of connection be overshadowed by something unexpected? What awaited them behind those kitchen doors? Jack's heart raced, a sudden jolt of anxiety slicing through the room. The laughter was replaced with a thick tension, a collective breath held in suspense. He exchanged worried glances with Mr. Thompson and Lily, who looked just as perplexed. "Stay here," Jack urged instinctively, moving toward the kitchen door. He felt a pull, a sense of duty to protect this newfound moment of connection from unraveling. He pushed past the threshold and stepped into the chaotic scene, crouched low. A brown paper bag lay sprawled across the tile floor, its contents cartons of milk spilling out like a white river. An older man with a gray mustache fumbled to clean up the mess, his face flustered but not panicked. A little girl stood close by, her cherubic face scrunched up with confusion. "I just wanted some milk," she whined softly, less about the product and more about the boys who had been rough outside her kitchen. Jack recognized her immediately, one of the neighborhood kids who had come with her mother for the gathering. "It's okay. It's all right," Jack interjected, his own worries temporarily fading. He knelt down beside the man and the girl. "Let us get this cleaned up together, huh?" With gentle teamwork, they collected the scattered cartons. The clatter of plastic against tile was a background score to a scene that felt a world away from the serious conversations they had just shared. Jack caught the girl's eye and flashed her a reassuring smile. As the three worked, Jack felt a shift in the air, a sense that vulnerability could be transformed into kindness. Moments shared over spilled milk, laughter amid the chaos. It was a reaction to the earlier heaviness, like a lifeline back to the warmth of the gathering, and suddenly the crash didn't feel so tragic. Once the mess was cleared, he stood and addressed the little girl. "What do you say we pour ourselves some fresh milk and maybe share it with everyone? What do you think?" Her face brightened, and she nodded vigorously. "Yes, please." Jack felt a little laugh bubble up inside him at the way her eyes sparkled with excitement. It reminded him of when he was a child, joy discovered in the simplest of things. The atmosphere shifted again as Jack returned to the main room, carrying a carton of milk in one hand and the girl in the other. People turned to him, curiosity piqued, and he felt the energy change from a worried, serious tone to something lighter and more hopeful. "Anyone up for a toast?" Jack called out, lifting the carton slightly. "To spilled milk and new friends." The room erupted in laughter again. It was a release, a day where spilled milk could end up binding them together in a way that felt almost sacred. He poured out cups for the little girl and himself, as the warmth of connection enveloped him whole. This place, these people, felt like home. It was the unvarnished truth he had yearned for, but just as Jack began to savor this new bond, a muffled shout broke through the laughter. "Help! It's really happening!" Jack's heart sank. His mind raced. The revelation was clear, something deeper was about to unfold, and he was at the center of it. The shadows of the kitchen chaos now hid a truth he hadn't anticipated. What was happening behind them that the merry gathering had suddenly switched to panic? Jack turned to the doorway, uncertainty heavy in the air, longing to understand what lay beyond. The room froze, the joyous laughter and smiles morphing into grim expressions. Jack felt the air thicken, like a sudden storm had rolled in, shrouding everything in uncertainty. Fear washed over him, pulling the jubilant vibe taut like a string about to snap. He turned quickly, following his instincts. "What's happening?" he called out, his voice rising above the tension. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, a flicker of confusion crossing his face as he glanced back toward the kitchen, then back to Jack, worry etched in every line. "Let us find out," Mr. Thompson urged, his voice low but firm, as he took a step toward the doorway. Lily followed closely, the little girl by Jack's side looking up at him, her eyes wide and watery. Jack took a deep breath, rallying his courage. "You two stay close," he instructed, motioning for the little girl to keep her hold on him. They moved almost as one unit, tension tightening in their shoulders. As they crossed the threshold, a cacophony of voices spilled into the kitchen. It felt like walking into a buzzing hive, full of confused shouts and rising panic. In the center of the room stood the host, panic clear on her face, pointing anxiously toward the front door. "It's the boys!" she exclaimed, her voice cracking. "They've come back." Jack felt his stomach twist. He knew those boys. The same ones who had been rough outside, the troublemakers who thrived on chaos. Panic was contagious, and he caught it. The laughter he had cherished only moments before evaporated like a mirage. "Everyone, just stay calm." Jack tried to soothe, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. But the fear swirling around was almost palpable. He caught sight of a few nervous parents moving to the shadows, shielding their younger children. Whispers of "what do we do?" drifted through the chaos. He glanced back to the little girl, her sweetheart innocence stark against the rising tension. "Hey, can you help me?" He crouched down, so their eyes met. "I need you to be brave. Can you stay with Mr. Thompson? He and I are going to make sure everyone is safe." She nodded slowly, fear still clouding her gaze, but Jack saw something else too, a flicker of trust. It settled something deep within him. He turned to Mr. Thompson, who stood resolute. "Let us organize everyone," Jack commanded, the leadership surging forward like a tide. "We'll keep the kids and mothers in the kitchen. The rest of us can check outside." They moved with urgency, like trained soldiers preparing for an unexpected ambush. Jack's heart thumped loudly in his chest as they gathered the frightened ones, whispering calm reassurances. But as the adults headed toward the entrance, Jack felt a sudden weight on his chest. What if it didn't end here? What if that chaos, the violence always lurking around the corner, forced them to face a moment that would shatter them? Another shout broke through his thoughts, coming from outside. A crash, a loud thud, then the sound of something skidding across the pavement. Jack's blood ran cold. "Stay back!" he shouted reflexively, raising his hands again. But the pull of fear would not be silenced. People rushed forward, drawn by instinct to see what lay beyond. With a single, frantic sweep of his mind, Jack knew they needed to make a stand. They couldn't cower in fear. Not now, not after everything they had built in this moment of hope. So, he took a step forward through the crowd, determination igniting a fire within him. "We face this together." Suddenly, everything converged. The unknown was ready to unravel, and Jack was right in the middle of it. The little girl's soft voice echoed in his mind. "I just wanted some milk," a plea that now felt heavier than ever as he prepared to confront whatever chaos awaited outside. What would it take to stand tall against the fear? Would he find the strength needed to protect not just the laughter but this community that had pulled together? The next steps lay unfurling before him like a sheet of blank canvas, waiting for the strokes of an unforeseen adventure. Jack pushed his way through the throng, the air thick with fear and anticipation. He felt like a soldier charging into battle, his heart pounding a steady drumbeat in his ears. Each step brought the chaotic sounds outside into sharper focus, the rattle of cans, muffled voices, and the unmistakable sounds of distress. "Jack!" Mr. Thompson's voice cut through the chaos, prompting him to halt for a brief moment. The older man stood at the doorframe, worry plastered across his face. "What do we do first?" Jack locked eyes with him, sharing a moment of understanding. "We split up," he replied. "A few of us will check the backyard, while the others confront whatever's going on in the front." The dim light from inside highlighted the shadows of people in the room, their faces painted in a palette of fear and uncertainty. But Jack felt a surge of something else, determination. This was more than just a moment of panic, it was an opportunity to forge a sense of togetherness. "Who else with me?" he shouted, his voice rising above the tide of anxiety. A handful of adults stepped forward, nodding to him, their courage rekindling like sparks igniting in the dark. They moved outside cautiously, Jack leading the way. As they reached the front of the house, the night air hit them like a shockwave. The moonlight illuminated a scene that made Jack's breath catch in his throat. A group of boys, a mix of faces he had seen before, were huddled together, looking almost uncertain themselves. One of them had kicked a large garbage can, the metallic echo still reverberating in the tension-filled night air. "Why are you here?" Jack called out, trying to keep his voice steady. The boys froze, their eyes darting nervously among each other. They just came to mess around, one of them finally muttered, shifting on his feet as if the weight of his own words was too heavy to bear. And what? They're hoping to frighten a bunch of kids? Jack pressed, launching into his own disbelief. He felt the collective tension as everyone braced against the reality of this confrontation. One boy, slightly taller than the others, stepped forward, seeming to gather courage. That's not why we came. We just thought it'd be funny. We didn't mean any real harm. Jack's heart sank. This threat of mischief felt like the beginning of something much larger. They were bored, searching for entertainment, yet they didn't realize the fear they wielded like a weapon. Do you understand what you've caused? Jack kept his voice firm. You've made everyone afraid. The boy mumbled an apology, but Jack didn't let it go. You can either walk away now or you can make this right. Give us a hand. It felt like a gamble, but something in him knew they could turn this around. The silence that followed felt heavy, laden with indecision. Jack looked back at the adults who had bravely followed him. He needed to lead not just in words, but in action too. Suddenly, a small voice broke the moment. Turning, Jack spotted the little girl, still safely hidden behind Mr. Thompson's leg, her blue eyes wide and hopeful. What if we all just wanted some milk? The simple innocence of her question hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. Jack saw the boys exchange glances, their rigid postures softening just a bit. Milk? The taller boy laughed nervously, glancing at the girl as if he just realized how misplaced their fun had become. Why do you want milk? Because it makes everything better, she replied earnestly, a smile tugging at her lips. Jack felt a wave of inspiration crash over him. Maybe they needed a reminder, a sense of community that would bring them back to a place of understanding. How about we all head back inside? We'll make some warm milk for everyone. You too, he said, directing his gaze at the boys. If you want to fix this. As confusion spread across their faces, Jack dared to hope. This could be a turning point, a chance to show that people could change. Could they actually turn this fear into unity? He met the eyes of those around him, each reflecting hope, uncertainty, but also a willingness to try. With his heart pounding, he stood on the precipice of change. But just as he was about to take a step forward, an unsettling sound filled the air. A loud crash from the backyard. Jack's heart leapt, instinct churning in his stomach. What now? Stay here, he commanded, before taking off toward the sound echoing across the darkened lawn. He didn't know what awaited him, but he steeled himself for whatever turmoil lay ahead. Would they face yet another challenge together? Or would the night push them further apart? Jack sprinted around the corner of the house, breath rushing in and out like the tide. The yard was awash in darkness, illuminated only by a sliver of moonlight. He could barely make out the figures gathered around. A couple of adults had already started moving back there, driven by instinct as much as curiosity. What's happening? Jack called out, his voice breaking the silence like a crack of thunder. As he reached the group, the scene unfolded before him. A wooden fence had partially collapsed, its slats now hanging precariously at odd angles. The murmurs of concern floated around him, bouncing off the walls of fear that had built up just minutes before. Some kids were messing around, trying to jump over, said Mr. Thompson, worry painting his features. They lost their balance. It could have ended badly. Jack's heart raced. He felt a surge of urgency. Let us get it fixed. We can't let this keep happening. The words spilled forth, and he felt himself stepping into a role he had never embraced before, a leader passionate about connection, the kind he had wanted all along. Who's got tools? He asked, glancing around at the gathering. Hands began to raise, volunteers stepping up from the shadows, ready to lend a hand. These were the members of the community who had surrounded him ever since he first stepped back into their lives, and in that moment, he felt the threads of unity weaving tightly around them. As they gathered the tools, screwdrivers, nails, and some spare wood, Jack caught a glimpse of the kids who had caused the ruckus. They hovered at the edge of the group, uncertain yet curious. Something stirred inside him, their youth reminded him of the vibrant innocence he'd feared losing. It was time to pull them in. "Hey!" Jack called out to the kids. "You guys want to help?" Their eyes widened in surprise, as if they had never anticipated such a thing. Even the tallest boy, who had looked cocky just moments ago, now seemed taken aback. "Help?" he repeated, twisting his fingers nervously. "Yeah. Let us put this fence back up together. Teamwork is what makes a community strong." Jack's voice rang out, and hope began spiraling upwards like smoke from a campfire. After a moment of hesitation, the boys looked at each other, whispered a few uncertain words of agreement, and then shuffled toward him. Jack felt a wave of warmth, relief washing over him. Maybe this was the moment he'd been steering toward, the moment that could echo beyond just resolving a broken fence. As they all worked, hands moving swiftly, tools clanging and clattering, laughter bubbled up, brightening the night air. Rookie spirits intermixed with protective instincts, old and young, rich and struggling, each shared voice working toward a promise together. When the fence was finally restored, Jack stood back, panting slightly, and marveled at what they had accomplished. A satisfied grin tugged at the corners of his mouth. The uncertainty from earlier seemed to melt away, replaced by a sense of pride shared among familiar strangers. "Look at that. Nice work." He grinned, meeting the eyes of the kids. They chuckled, a spark of camaraderie igniting anew. "Let us finish this night right, milk and snacks for everyone," Jack called, and at this, they all cheered, a collective spirit leaping into the air. With Lily at his side, they headed back inside, Jack's heart now swelling with gratitude. The kitchen was alive, filled with chatter and joyous faces. They poured out glasses of milk together, jubilant laughter serving as the backdrop to their transformed night. In a corner, Mr. Thompson caught Jack's eye and nodded, understanding passing between them. Here was redemption, a coming together born from chaos that only moments ago felt insurmountable. "Here's to community." Jack raised his glass, and echoing laughter filled the room. "Here's to connection," Mr. Thompson added, raising his glass as well. "Here's to milk," Lily piped up, her voice ringing clear and bright, as if each word was a star. They all laughed then, real, genuine laughter, a testament to everything they had built in jest. One evening, Jack knew that he had not only repaired a fence, he had stitched back together the fragile bonds of humanity. As the night wound down, tired smiles decorated their faces, but there was heart in every smile. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. He glanced around and saw not just friends, but family, a tapestry woven together by shared stories, struggles, and triumphs, and as they all began to depart one by one, Jack felt the rush of gratitude surge within him, bursting forth like a flood. "Hey everyone!" he called before anyone could leave. "Let us do this again. Let us make it regular. We can come together to share, support, and build a future." The cheer that erupted felt like a promise mingled with emotion, solidifying the bonds of hope amidst uncertainty. Jack realized this was his transformation, a journey woven in giving, vulnerability, and the rich fabric of community, a journey he embraced with open arms. Standing there, surrounded by laughter and bright faces, he finally felt whole. He knew this was his family. And this was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means everything to the channel.